our hope today is to get you to talk more than we do, okay? And so I'm going to, because we want everybody's thoughts on this, so I'm going to set up the first straw man, as I would call it, that's based on mostly what I've heard today. And I think the underlying theme we've had today has been frequency stability, whether it's theory on the high voltage side or how much is in the bulk power system, how much is in the distribution system. We saw from Wei-Du how well we can control at the distribution level, but we've seen things that there seems to be more oscillations on the bulk power world. Okay, so the first thing is whether we're on the bulk power or in the distribution, and let's assume we're all grid forming inverters, we have to have headroom. If you lose a generator or put a load on and you don't want the synchronous machines to make up the difference, you have to have some headroom. Now that means the people that build it have to operate off with it. And so economics get into that, but keep in mind there is headroom in here. It has to be. You saw Wei-Du talk about the advantage of giving some reserves in PV to do that headroom. But obviously there's the other side that's going to say, oh, but we're not using all our renewables. So there's a dynamics in there already. Now, that keeps falling on me, and thank you.
Bob, can you tell us how much headroom you need?
How much do you have to pay for that? No, that's an interesting question. But now let's add one more thing to it. The complexity of the system. We can think of how we heard from Mark on the morning of how much can be on the bulk power system. And I think he said 2/3 and 1/3. But if you got 1,000 of these or even 100 of these sitting up on the bulk power system in the 100 megawatt range, you got 10,000 for the 1/3 sitting down in the distribution system. So now we're talking 10,000 plus. And so how do we deal with that complexity? Do we have to make them all autonomous, like we've done in the microgrid world for CERTs? Or do we have some hierarchical controls? So that's, I think, one very important question. But now what I can contend that this will probably work from what we've done in the microgrid. But I don't know how much the large impedances put in and the slowing down of the behavior of the inverters getting to where the load is. But you can also say what goes down in the distribution system meets the local load change. So we have two mechanisms in controlling frequency. In the distribution system, a load changes, we make it up locally and doesn't require the bulk power system. So they're two very different models. And I want to hear any questions on that straw man.
Actually, I'm going to take the prerogative of holding the mic. The amount of headroom you need depends on the size of the imbalances you need to address.
Yeah.
That's right. It depends. That sounds like an issue.
So I'll take a little bit of an issue about how the question is posed in the first place. As a thought experiment, saying that it must all be grid forming, okay, great. As a thought experiment, that's fine. But the reality is, as we move forward, the grid forming inverters will be added incrementally to the existing base of what's out there. And what's out there isn't going to change overnight. It'll take time for that to occur.
No, I agree 100%. But what I want to ask, in this straw man, where are our challenges? From the comment here, our challenges are gradually adding more inverter sources into the system and not operating some synchronous machines. So there's this long gradation. We know from the CERT's microgrid that we'd be 100% inverters. So where are the comments and what are the challenges in this issue?
I mean, I think since we have this split between the grid forming and the grid following, I think we know that if we just put in 100% grid following, we're going to have a problem. So how much can we get and how much does a system operator need to require the grid forming capability? It would be good to have a rough way of estimating what that number kind of is.
It also depends on how much sick- it also is going to depend on how much citrus you want to put.
But isn't it, I mean, this is kind of analogous to, spinning reserves, right? This is kind of effectively the same thing as spinning reserves. And then it's just a question, of when you get to inverter-based sources, and if you get to a fast, more rapidly determined grid, can you reduce your spinning reserves? Because if you think about right now where ISO is controlling, not exactly by looking at a big frequency dial on a wall, but pretty close to it and with pretty imprecise communications, you're probably keeping more spinning reserves there than you would have to put in this circumstance.
So because the system is organized hierarchical, so both systems versus distribution network, it seems that unless there are microgrids that are completely islanded, we would want to have grid forming inverters or renewables on the bulk system, whereas in the distribution network, similar to existing system operations, we would like to have more grid following inverters to basically supply, the changes of to create the balance of power in the distribution network. That seems to be a reasonable thing to do in terms of maintaining frequency of the overall system.
So one of the questions would be, as inverters are added incrementally in the system, synchronous generator is still there in the, so which means do we really need grid forming inverters, and when do we need grid forming inverters? Because grid following inverters with sufficient advanced control mechanisms might be sufficient. This thing is there. We need to prove that that's insufficient. Grid following with advanced control functionality, especially in a mixed system. We move to 100% penetration, that's going to be probably.
Can someone quickly comment on the cost? Everything given equal, which one costs more? Or that automatically determines the percentage eventually, because the higher cost one will be minimized, but the rest would be the other high. I think eventually everything boils down to economics. And you would always keep the minimum of required high cost device versus populate the rest of it.
Let the inverter manufacturers.
Well, you're already required, what do you basically required to have?
Yeah, ship today. I've heard her say advanced computing. No, it's not. It's grid following with governing action.
To the question, I think the challenges remains the same. It's to keep enough reserves. The change is that the time constant changes the nature of response, and definitely the way you protect the system. We have totally different short circuit. But what puzzles me in this discussion is that you so much focus on grid forming and grid following converters. I mean, if you look at the transmission grid or the power systems today, there are no grid forming components. It's the sum of all the generators, all the controls that defines the grid and the frequency and the balance. So in this, finally, I think all components should react to to the signals on balance in a way, so that they should all be somewhat grid forming. I just want to hear your opinion on if I'm totally wrong, so questioning about grid following or not?
Well, I think the hypothesis was that at some point grid following would be incapable without some amount of support. And so if, synchronous is the other source of that support and it's going away, then where is that support going to come from? And that's where this interest in grid following comes from. And so that's where Ben's question comes in. At what point, how much do you need? Which I gave my pithy response. So you need as much as you need for the problems you want to deal with, and the speed with which you can deliver the response based on the nature of those imbalances.
Any thoughts on the complexity of tens of thousands, or do you think you just don't control them? Which was part of my first question.
So Ben is not going to go.
I'll say that you need to, one thing you need to think about is the instantaneous response here. So that has to be an autonomous function without a control signal.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get past that, then there's a lot of different ways to do it.
Yeah.
So concerning the complexity, so as we did a lot of systems with multi-path operation and such performing inverters, I think if they are designed in the right way, there is no complexity issue. You can put as many as you wish. So I see no complexity problems. Only if you want to control that unit. First, we have to distinguish between the primary control that in Europe we see after some seconds coming and not limited by the synchronous machines, by the way, but by the controller of the scheme. So this is one point. The other point of the cost is here there is higher cost of the voltage on grid forming. The costs are higher because you need a more power reserve in order to supply power short term in the moment when you supply the voltage support. And
the energy.
the whole system needs designed slightly differently in order to provide this power request in order to keep the voltage.
We've used it more than half our time.
Yeah.
I'm not a hardware expert, but just speaking from a control perspective, I think it all depends on what you want them to do. If each one can be individually controlled as a perfect voltage source, then you don't need the coordination. I think the complexity is low. But kind of similar comment. But if you want to do more, you want to coordinate them in some way for system performance, then that becomes more complicated. Then that's the really can be a problem. But also when I comment, can go back to Greg's comment earlier. It's not going to be 100% uniforming right away. We have to agree. But I guess the most likely place in the first scenario, 100% uniforming is likely, especially in isolated mode. And you have to have a uniforming in that system to show how you can what are the differences.
You may spend all the time on this.
So today there's definitely a difference between transmission systems and distribution systems, and the way we want that equipment to perform is different. In the distribution for 1547-2018, we said we want momentary cessation when the voltage drops below 0.5. Whereas in transmission, they want exactly the opposite of that. They want the unit to continue operating as much as possible. In distribution, they want unintentional islanding protection. In transmission, they do not. And so I would actually argue that maybe one of the first places grid forming should start being adopted is in the transmission-based systems. Now, also in microgrids, burn the candle from both ends, if you will. But it kind of flips that triangle upside down. If you say one of the early places that grid forming should go is transmission. And from a standards point of view, it's maybe easier to do that because P2800 is being written right now. So it's a thought.
Is it a load that is to stabilize the grid? I mean, don't you want to be as close to the load as possible in terms of where your control is? It's just a tip.
I've been accumulating comments, so that was a good time. First thing I want to say that you don't necessarily need reserve capacity to provide grid forming functions of control. So a solar inverter that's running on MPPT can still provide harmonic current, and if it's running grid forming control, it can still curtail very quickly, which is really valuable for having basically a good transient response in the event that you have a drastic sudden drop in load. The second thing I want to say is that there's a lot that we can learn from how the grid is controlled today. So there's a book I've read a few times. I think everyone here should read it at one point. It was actually published in 1966 by an IEEE rock star named Nathan Cohn, called Control of Generation and Power Flow on Interconnected Power Systems. So this is before the word grid even existed. And there's a lot of people that were really smart to figure out some optimal way to do things that really we can learn from. And they didn't have access to the same technology that we did, right? They didn't have ARM processors. They didn't have high bandwidth communication systems, so they had to do a lot. So one thing I want to point out is that, you know, when it comes time where we're trying to figure out, okay, how much reserve capacity should a solar plant have? It's actually market driven, right? Because the catalyst stuff today, balancing authority, basically runs markets for and ancillary service markets. The power plant can now bid into both of them. And it can also bid into ancillary service markets. It has to make its own decision on how to manage that, right? Believe me, they'll figure out the optimal overhead is. And you know, that authority can say, based on the size of the system and historically how they actually forecast on those, they'll determine how much reserve they need. They'll place a bit, you know, they'll open up for it, and solar will bid an optimal amount for that based on their own costs.
I suggest the voltage.
Reserves was in based on the obligation to provide adequate frequency response in the interconnect. Some interconnects that's been codified as well as 3%. Because that's what we're talking about in terms of the loss of generation that the check. And so you can have a market when you know what the requirement is. And that was what I was particularly responding to Ben about. You tell me what it is you're trying to do and what contingencies you need to prepare to withstand, and I'll tell you how much reserve you need. And then how you procure it, you know, can be by a variety of different means, the market being the one that we prefer these days.
I'm looking at the time, so I want to touch on a couple of other topics before we run out of time. So we heard a lot of discussions on frequency control, frequency stability, but we don't hear too much about voltage control, voltage stability. We touched that a little bit towards the end of last talk, where we have a limit on the current that the inverter can supply, and does that affect the stability of the system? That's a question, open question I'd like to hear some thoughts on. And another topic is on modeling. One of the big challenges the inverter brings in is its fast dynamics. We've heard several speakers touched on this topic, where the line dynamics may be important if we have inverters. And we heard that positive sequence simulation has its limitation. So the general question is, for this high-level penetration PV system or inverter system, what's the adequate model fidelity we need? What type of simulation tools I need to accurately capture the behavior of the system, to study out the behavior of the system? So
in 5 minutes.
In 5 minutes.
Hey.
All right. Let me give you kind of the regular aspect of this. I want both. We want voltage and frequency control on the system. all times. The aspect of voltage, from what I understand, is that because it's grid following right now, they won't produce full output power with the drop in voltage. They're going to have voltage support in the system. Do you want it from devices that are producing power, converting power for you, or do you want to put voltage devices in there for you? So none of that can be done adequately without a right model. Right now, this is a struggle with industry right now. Right now, we don't have an adequate model to see if the products that we propose will even work, because the model is so far off. So, I'm talking about momentary cessation. It's not showing that problem on the system. The model is inadequate. So how do we straighten out what we have now before we kind of study what's in the future? Because we have a problem now, don't fix it. We're going to have a top model look into the future, and they give you the wrong answer. What we need in the future if we work together. The other drawback of models like C is that we draw this magical line called the distribution system. What is the distribution system? The electrons don't know. The electrons will go where they want to go. Right? So you say this transformer is down the distribution system versus moving that line up voltages or downward on voltages. It doesn't matter. But the system needs to be, because of commingling the resources now in the distribution. To me, it's all the same system now. We have to model that together in order to determine the impacts on each other's system. So that's the challenge. There's no magical line that says that this transformer is now distribution. We need support from all these resources at all voltages.
Anyone else? Brian?
Okay, I'll touch on two aspects of what was just mentioned. One is this modeling aspect. Of, it is true that we have a very tightly coupled system across transmission and distribution potentially, but we can't simulate a system with a million nodes on it and hope to get something in a timely fashion. So this is where work on trying to model the dynamic equivalent behavior of large collections of converters together is important. And I've been looking into this, and we call it aggregate modeling, and it's just an attempt to try and capture the net output behavior of many converters. And so that's one thing. And it also touches on something that's related but different, which is this complexity issue for control. So stepping outside of the modeling world now. It is true that the grid forming controllers don't need fast signals to keep the system up and running. But if you want to do secondary control, like frequency restoration and things like that, you need to send signals down to them. And especially if you want to integrate economics into them. And how do you get a top level signal from a system operator down to these endpoints? That's the challenge. And this is where another word comes in, which is aggregators, which is different from what I was saying earlier from modeling. This is where people develop these hierarchical methods to relay messages down to endpoints. So I just want to kind of clarify those things so we're on the same page.
Don't get the last word.
So I would, yeah, repeat this. So you're mentioning you need to have a communication for secondary control. But those inverters who have this voltage control do not have to deliver the secondary control. This is another product on the market on ancillary services. So you can completely decouple this. My comment on the complexity on communication for inverters for inertia, this has nothing to do with primary or secondary control. Just providing inertia and this can be done autonomously and can be also there as a product in the market. Then the second point, because you hinted on the question of voltage stability, I will elaborate on this more and more. If you look at the long-term voltage stability on the transmission line, where you can have an overload and you can cause system collapse, the voltage collapse. There we analyzed that with inverters, but not only with common inverters, we get problems if we control the voltage and we keep it up in times of congestion, and then we increase the load and we support the product. So this, I how we can hope that this is about coordinated control between the inverter control and the system integration.
So I want to thank you guys because this is exactly the kind of discussion we're hoping for this. We're talking with you again. I think tomorrow we have a session.